Welcome back to the Project Corner. Today we're going to have a look at this nice little visual called the Synoptic Panel, and it has a risk matrix option as well. So this is very cool because it has a multi-select option as well as just looking very cool. It's responsive and it has a very nice setup, which I'm going to go through in this video. But before we dive in, click that like button, hit subscribe. It helps the channel a lot and lets me know if I'm doing the right thing. So let's jump into building these synoptic panels. Okay, here we are at the beginning of our journey through exploring that synoptic panel, that great visual for things like creating a risk matrix. So the synoptic panel actually contains two vital parts. First part is you will need to have that visual. So we'll go to the ellipsis and we'll click on get more visuals. And from here we will take a look at the Synoptic Panel by OKViz. Now, one thing that you might notice is that this little star is in here. That means that it is a certified Power BI visual, which is great because a certified visual actually shows up in printouts. And there are some other perks for being a certified visual. So let's add that visual right now, and you will see that the import is successful, as well as that nice little visual here. Now, if I click on this, you will get a empty visual, and there's basically not much that you can do straight from the bat. So what you now need to do is you need to make sure that you have the visual that you're actually going to use within the Synoptic Panel. Now, to design that visual, you need that second part. And that second part is the Synoptic Designer for Power BI, which is accessible through the web page synoptic.design. And here's the About page, and there is a very nice, very extensive blog article about introduction to the Synoptic Panel. We're not going to look at floor plans or boating services or even looking at the overall capacity of a stadium. No, we are going to create our beloved risk matrix. So what do we have from the Synoptic Designer? We have an editor, we have a gallery, and we have an About page. Well, the gallery is interesting because here you see some guidance on what you can actually do with the Synoptic Designer. You can do all kinds of things. Foot plans, body parts, human body, generic store, something about baseball, which I know nothing about, I'm sorry. And there's countries as well. So if you're ever interested in doing a country metric or a country specific visualization of your data, keep in mind the Synoptic Designer and the Synoptic Panel. Because for the Netherlands, for instance, all municipalities are in here, and provinces, which is basically states, are in here as well. And if you look at that, that just looks awesome. I don't know why the other islands are blank, but and the other island, but yeah, there's probably a reason, good reason for that. No worries, we're not going to look into countries or baseball. We're going to go to the editor. So straight away, very clean, drag an image, and we're good to go. So here we go. I have a folder open, and if you're a member of the Project Corner newsletter subscription, then you'll get access to all these files, and we'll get to these in a moment, and we'll get to this one and the actual Power BI report as well. What we need to do is we need to create that 9 grid and that 25 grid risk matrix. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this value here, or this file here, And here we go. I'm going to zoom out a bit. Well, I'm not allowed to zoom out, but suffice to say, this is our 9 grid, and very clearly the visual that we're actually looking for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out the 9 different sections, and there's a number of ways to do that. You can drag and drop your visualization by clicking the area together, but because there's all rastered out lines in here as well, we're going to do it with the magic wand because that's way easier. Now make sure to have that magic wand go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, because that's the order in which we're going to create those risk tables. That's the order we're going to create that risk table. So let's go. Clicking on that magic wand changes the cursor, and here we go. 1, and what you see, and I'm going to just go over there, is that there is a raster going along, or there's a section going along the lines of that location. Very nice. And you already see how big that data value is going to look. Well, that's too small for us, obviously, but we're going to change that in the visual in just a moment. And I'm going to navigate to the center again, and I'm going to do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, for different visuals, you might also want to include an area name, and you would like to have that area name coincide to the data that you actually have. Now, I have a link in the show note from Pragmatic Works. They share an excellent example of using the Synoptic Designer together with a gas station. And they show that you have gas pump 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6, as well as a maintenance area, I think. For us, it's very easy and very simple. I have the 9 grid here, and what you need to do now is you need to click on Export to Power BI. A little pop-up shows up, and it tells us that we did fantastic work. Always lovely to hear that. Right-click on the above image and press Save Image As. So I'm just going to do this for show. Save link as. Oh, no, save link as. Save image as. And what you'll see is I already have the risk 3x3 and the risk 5x5 here. So I'm not going to save it directly because I already did. But you would like to do that if you're going to follow along. So that's it for the Synoptic Designer. An excellent tool, does what it needs to do. So let's close that off for now. And let's head back to our Power BI. So with that Synoptic, that SVG file, I don't know what that stands for, but the SVG file is now stored on a local drive, and we can use that for our visual. Now we have a couple of sources. I have a project online source, I have an Excel source, and I have both a 3x3 grid and a 5x5 grid Excel. So let's start with project online. I took the data from the previous videos. As you can see, the impact value is in here as well. I created these two fields new. So the risk location 3x3 and risk location 5x5 actually tells us about the location of the grid, the one that we just had in the Synoptic panel. I needed to create this, and I'll show you briefly how I created that in this Excel sheet. Yeah, it's been a long evening. I needed to figure this out all for every location on the grid, and you have a 3x3 grid only has 9 values, but then a 5x5 grid has 25 values. And you need to have the impact grid is 1, and then the probability grid is also 1. Then it's the lowest left value. but that goes all the way up to 9 or all the way up to 25. Now, you won't need to do this yourself because you obviously get the Synoptic Panel risk matrix Power BI file if you sign up to that. Newsletter. So let's jump back in. That risk location 3x3, we want to select that and it will go to measure, which is actually not what we want to do. I like this though, that you have that URL here. Very cool. That might have been useful if you had nothing stored in here, but yeah. That risk location actually needs to go to the category as well as to the states measure. And then we're going to have the risk ID being our actual measure. So let's do that right now. And we're not going to have first risk ID. No, we are actually going to count them. Now, this is all you need to do in regards to getting a visualization that we can use with the Synoptic Panel. Well, these are all the values that you need to have in there. Not everything you need to do, obviously. So we're going to grab local map. And from here, we're going to grab that risk 3x3 grid. And what you'll see is that our risk 3x3 grid is in here. And it looks nice. And I'm going to open that up a little bit. Right away, if I select a value, you'll see the different colors that we actually want to have. But instead of the colors that we now see, we actually want to have the correct colors. So let me just pull up a little text bar here and have those colors in here as well. So the color coding that we want to have from our risk matrix is actually something that we need to visualize in our formatting. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at general, and there's something about the unmatched areas. If you turn this off, it just responds better. So that's at least what I've seen happening. Then data colors, we're going to have borders on, yeah, sure. Default color, I would say let's have that as white so that we have a normal facing color. And then we are going to select show all. And this is going to color code based on your template. But we want to change that obviously to the correct colors that we have here. So this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We need to color code that correctly. And it is based on the location. So 1 is actually green. So let's pick up that green that we have here. So that's going to be, oh, that's going to be 6CA144. And that's looking awesome. That's looking very nice, just like it should be. So 1 is green, then 2 is also going to be that same green, and then we have 4 also needs to be the green. So I'm going to speed this up for the other colors. Just sit tight. And there we have our nice risk matrix. But what is lacking, obviously, we still have the data labels and we want to turn them on. And just like I mentioned, that number is very, very, very tiny. So let's increase the size of that by maybe adding, yeah, that looks way better. All right. And if I select this now, we can see that there's some changes of values here as well. Well, so what I now want to do is one of the things that the Synoptic Designer does excellently is we have the option to do a single select. Now going back to the format, we are going to change the states of a value. Now normally we would have the state A, and I'm not completely sure on what is happening here, but if I select it is smaller than 0, and I select white as being the color, I should see oh well, for the life of me. Yes, here we go. So what I changed is I changed the default color to white, and what I also have is I've set the state values, and having the state bigger as 0 actually changes this into a select value. So now I can even have a nice little table next to it, and let's do that right now. I have a table, and in that table I would like to have the project name as well as the cost exposure next to it. So I have these projects and they're all in 2. So when I deselect everything, everything is white, and we see that everything has a place in one of these 4 projects. If I select this value here, I will see hold on. I will see the number, which is not the correct one, so I'll navigate quickly to the I will navigate quickly to the visual and go to the data labels and not look at the data column, but look at the data value. And now I see that there are 6 risks in here. That makes a lot of more sense, having multiple risks. So here there are 2 risks. They're in software development, 1 and 2. Here are 3 risks, and I can even have the risk names in here. That would make sense as well, right? So that's the title. And I'm going to remove the project name because I'm not interested in that anymore. Cost. So here, just having the title of that risk makes it a lot easier for us to say, okay, well, yeah, these are the 5 risks that we have. Those 7 risks, here 6, here are just 2. So having that option to have a single select value is something that I've been missing in my previous videos. And using that states value here, let's find it back again, having to select the visual itself, having the option to have a state value as well as the data colors for each of these makes a lot of sense. But let's dive into that risk situation with a Excel sheet as well. So what I needed to do here, and what you actually will need to do with Microsoft Project as well, is you will need to have all the risks, all the states of the risk represented in your values. So that meant that I needed to dive into project sites and create a slew of risks before I could create this dummy, because all of these values needed to be represented, which is kind of a pain. But what I've done, let's duplicate this panel and let's have here the Excel version, and let's build that Excel version with both the 9 grid and the other grid, the 25 grid. So what I've done, because not everyone has Project, right? So, but everyone has Excel. And what I did is I created these Excel sheets, these Excel tables, basically, sorry. So we have program, we have projects, and we have risks, and we have very descriptive names for those risks, and we have impact, and we have probability. Now, I did a little trick here with random between 1 and 10 and random between 1 and 90, and then dividing by 100, creating a unique value. So every time I hit F9, it should recalculate, and it doesn't. Nice. Why isn't it recalculating? Oh well. That is strange. And with the magic of editing, we now have the full 5x5 grid. And what I found out during my work is that I don't need to color code each and every one of these data rows. No, I can just select white here, and then I can select states. And if it's bigger than state A, it will turn up 1, and it will be white as well. And that just turned everything magically transparent, and that is exactly what we wanted. So we can now have a clear view of our risk matrix without doing that much work. So that is very nice. One last thing I wanted to change here is having a look at the data labels and making sure that that color, well, seems that there is no option to change the color of the data label itself. Is that true? Ah, no, here we go. So by default, it just is. That just speaks a whole lot more, having that as actual black. And I'm going to do that here as well. So no fill actually means that it takes a default value. So very nice. And that's another great way of visualizing your risk matrix. Now, I've received multiple requests, 2 actually, which is a big deal for me, to do a deep dive session on the new Project Accelerator app presented by Microsoft in their last Project for the Web blog post. So that's going to be my next video, and that's going to be probably a lot more preparation. So in the meantime, have a look at all our monthly update videos on the playlist on screen now. And if you're interested in more risk matrix, just have a look at the risk matrix playlist as well. Don't forget to subscribe and like. It helps me a lot and lets me know that I'm doing the right thing with the channel.